Hi, kitty cats. Welcome to the Identify Yourself streaming live show. I just happened to close my little page there, which was a great. So, I am Amethyst Herrick, an author and podcaster. I'd love you to check the links below for more information about me and the work I do. That first one is my personal website, amethysta.io. You will find all the social media networks I'm on, and you can follow me so that you know everything that I'm up to. The second link below, genderidentitytoday.com, that is my professional website. And all of my articles, all of my podcasts are published there. And we also have work from other contributors. Now, if you like this content, then you can please subscribe, or please go subscribe at Gender Identity Today. You can get a subscription for as low as $2 a month. And of course, if you'd like to contribute content to Gender Identity Today, please contact me through my personal website. That last link down there is my Ko-fi page. I'd love it if you just wanted to send a tip as you see fit. So today, what we have going on are a few questions. The best question I got here was, what is a woman? And I think this has some great, context behind it. It wasn't that long ago that a guy named Matt Walsh went out with a camera and ridiculed academics, plopped all the footage together into something that ridiculed them more, and then he called it a documentary. Now, there is no doubt that Walsh was not looking to expose truth. He wasn't looking to be a scientist. He wasn't looking to discuss sociology. He had a preconceived notion of what he wanted to present. And so he worked to further his own political agenda. Now, for whatever it's worth, it was very highly effective because it showed that the word woman is difficult to describe at the very least. And if we, in a community that's trying to say transgender women are women, if we can't define the word woman, then clearly what we need is some sort of unambiguous standard, and that should be science. Comment number 2 that I got has to do with genitalia. The question is really, why is so much of this debate around gender focused on genitalia? Does it matter? Can we combat this? And does it really need it? And then the third was not something I had really intended to pull into a live stream, but I think it fit in with everything that I was going to discuss today, which this question here really asks about safety within a social environment. The commenter said, transgender women are claiming they are women and insisting on entering female-only spaces. And that's unacceptable, infuriating. Women and children, females and children need to be protected by men, which harkens back to the idea that we need an unambiguous way to determine who can go where. And really the appeal is to science. So what I want to do is start talking about science. The current conservative rhetoric claims that sex is identical to gender and gender is identical to sexuality, which is to say that sex defines gender. Gender defines sexuality. And so by the transitive property, sex defines sexuality. And the argument we're given here is, well, this is basic biology. And people like me, people who might have a background in biology, let's say, like to point out that expression of sex characteristics is an individual property of each body. You express your own sex characteristics, I express my own sex characteristics. Can we generalize these? We've also observed that gender changes over time and with social environments. We've seen that heavy makeup, long hair, and high heels was distinctly masculine in pre-revolution France, which is not the case today. And finally, sexuality involves two people. At least two people. I'm not trying to judge here. Do what you want to. The point is, it's a social activity. Can we govern social activities through science? It's a good question. So let's talk about where genitalia comes from. I'm going to start with human genetics. the human genome has a total of 23 chromosomal pairs. I'm going to try to do this, it's not going to be too rough. Hang in there. 23 chromosomal pairs. Of those 23, 22 of them are shared 100% completely by all humans. I just want to put some context to that. There are about 34,000 genes that have been identified in the human genome, and that means more than 95% of them, those that define human structure, human biochemistry, are common in every body, every cell. Chromosome pair 23 is a little bit special. This is the one they call the sex chromosome. There is always one chromosome out of the pair that is labeled X. Geneticists apparently aren't very good with nomenclature, but let it run. There may be a side to the pair. There may be one chromosome in the pair that is labeled Y, and this is contributed only by a male during sexual reproduction. Now, the question I asked there is, where does genitalia come from? Now, an interesting factoid is that neither the X chromosome nor the Y chromosome on chromosome 23, chromosome pair 23, neither of those two contains the information that develops the actual sex characteristics, breasts, ovaries, a uterus. That's on other chromosomes, which again is common to every single human. So the direction a zygote develops is really affected by the environment that the zygote's in. And that's a couple of two things. The first is the mother and her hormonal concentrations, which she's able to secrete. The genetics of the zygote play a part. Not kidding. I'm not lying here. But partly what they do is affect the mother. So the Y chromosome in pair 23, as I mentioned, it doesn't contain the information to develop a testis, a human testis, that develops into male reproductive parts. There is one gene in the Y chromosome on pair 23 that acts as what they call a master gene. This is called the SRY gene, the sex determination gene in region Y. Once again, geneticists sort of fail at nomenclature, but hey, we're rooting for you guys, don't worry. This one gene kicks off a chain of development, and there are various pathways that it kicks off. But it works in conjunction with several other genetic pathways and is also very highly dependent on the hormones the mother can produce. There is a protein that the SRY gene generates called testis determining factor. It's a protein. What that does is stimulate the mother to generate enough testosterone to create a testis. The mother has to create testosterone first. Now, another little interesting tidbit is that the SRY gene in some men, in some gametes, some sperm, the SRY gene will actually translocate to an X chromosome when gametes are produced. So typically, what we observe in nature, in the human species, is that an XX genotype results in a female reproductive system. An XY genotype results in a male reproductive system. But it is highly possible that to find XX genotypes that developed male parts because of, say, the translocation of the SRY gene. And it is also highly possible for for people with an XY genotype to develop female reproductive parts because the mother doesn't produce enough testosterone. The zygote is not highly sensitive to testosterone. There are a couple of reasons. And there are many, many other variations that biologists have observed to date. In fact, there are over 1,200 observed intersex characteristics. This, genetics, is by no means an unambiguous process, not in the least. And we have found that environmental factors continue to affect human genetics and development. So, let's go back to that question. Basic biology. What is exactly basic biology? Well, if XY does not guarantee male reproductive parts, we have to accept that the human body has a wide range of variation in expressing sex characteristics. Now, there are estimates done on how much variation we're talking about. And estimates on intersex characteristics reach as high as almost 2%. There is some difficulty and actually ethical concerns around measuring that. Usually because there's no need. Most of the time you only care about your, like a hardcore genetic profile if you present with a pathology, usually an endocrinological pathology. Or if you really need to know, yes, my ancestors came from Scotland. I mean, there's that too. But usually we don't do these hardcore genetic tests because there's just no need. But let's think about this, what 2% means. There are 385,000 births that occur globally every day. Even if 2% is the number, and personally I believe that's low, 8,000 of those people are intersex. 8,000 new intersex people born every single day. Every single day. Now, I'm a scientist. I like to deal in theories. I like to deal in science. And scientific theory is not there to describe most phenomena. Science is expected to describe all phenomena, or your theory is incomplete. What these people, what conservative rhetoric would call basic biology, is incomplete. Because it is incomplete, it actually cannot form the basis of a logical argument, and the idea that sex equals gender equals sexuality is a fallacious conclusion, just by logic. So, to return to this question, why do we discuss genitalia so often? I believe the reason is because genitalia is very easily observed. Usually it's external. We don't care about endocrinological pathologies. We care about what's on the outside. And it's fairly easily observed, especially if you just ask somebody to strip down. Now your question's answered, right? Now, to some people out there, to me, let's say, the idea of stripping down is a bit triggering. Are we expected to prove our gender every day by a strip search? Can we allow this violation of personal safety, individual privacy? And honestly, what value is it going to serve to walk into a grocery store and strip down, prove your gender so that you can buy feminine hygiene products? This makes me want to return to the third comment, but one quick second here. Do I think it matters? Do I think it matters that we talk about genitalia? Candidly, no, because genitalia is not the determining factor here. It's just easily observed. Is there a way to combat this? Yes. And all we have to do is say that argument is logically fallacious. It comes from a poor premise. It must lead to a poor conclusion. Does it need combating? Well, yes, it does, because boy, I'll tell you, I really don't want to have to do that stripping down. So let's return to this. What this comment says is that it's unacceptable to have certain genitalia in spaces reserved for other certain genitalia. What we need to do is guard the rest of the human species against men, just like we always needed to. The risks are too high not to protect humanity against men. So I want to ask some questions here. Do male reproductive parts guarantee aggression? Or are there humans with male reproductive parts who can work together in harmony? Do female reproductive parts guarantee docility? Do they guarantee harmony? Or are there people with female reproductive parts who are more than willing to kill their others to achieve their goals? Is this concern not about genitalia, but is it concern about how unsafe our societies have become? I believe this focus on genitalia, and in particular transgender women and our genitalia, is only a smokescreen. And it's a smokescreen to cover the failure of our governments to protect their citizens. I don't think there's anything left to it. And to ask the question, what is a woman? I think I've got to say, what does it matter? If we live in fear of each other, if we can't trust each other, if the only thing we see is the opportunity to harm others or the danger of being harmed, God, gender at this point is a pretty minor point. We need to look at the safety of our communities first before we get too dang concerned about what genitalia is in our pants. So I'm going to finally return to this question. What is a woman? Well, I want to talk about identity. Much of my work revolves around identity. What is the origin and the nature of identity? And identity is a complex. It's a complex of physical structure, your actual body, its structure, its biochemistry, your length of hair, the fashion that you wear. It's also complex with cognitive patterns, how we think, how we respond, what emotions jump out at us. And it's also complex with behavioral expression, which is to say, how we actually interoperate in a social environment. Now, gender is a primary component of identity. As each of us develops our identity, we determine what aspects of the human experience are important to us. Last week, I brought up the idea of somebody telling me my favorite vegetable was wrong. We determine what aspects of the human experience are important to us, and nobody can gainsay that. That's because we determine this. Now, when you take all the individuals in a society and merge them, we get characteristics that form a social identity. And this is how I could talk about men wearing makeup in pre-revolution France versus today. It's a social identity. And that social identity ends up not defining, but certainly we figure out that what is proper for a man or a woman to be, to do, to think, and to act, all of these become social conventions and social expectations. And our part of identity is to determine whether we fulfill those social expectations or not. And the result is our gender identity. So, I'm finally going to answer this question. To me, the most important social aspects, the most important social conventions in my social environment as it stands that define femininity are body shape. I like a feminine figure, breasts, wide hips, long hair. Long hair has always implied femininity to me. Eye makeup. I love eyeliner. I love mascara. As far as behavior goes, I think femininity is also well described by nurturing and growing humans as opposed to viewing them as objects and using them as tools. And I believe it is a good feminine trait to desire peace over to desiring battle. So to answer this question, how did I define it and how do I know if I've transitioned to it? I tick all these boxes. That means I know that I've transitioned and I know I'm a woman. I hope that answered that question. All right. Those were all the topics I had for today. Hopefully that was really interesting. I want to look at this one comment here that says, I feel safe around transgender people more than the average guy. I can believe that. Oftentimes, transgender people have studied their identity, studied their gender very closely. And it's not the kind of thing that, is valued in society today. And I find that to be a bummer. There's no reason that we should condemn people for figuring out who they are and deciding they're not going to fulfill social expectations they find unimportant. That's my opinion, and it's really the planks of my platform in all the work that I've done. So, all right. At this point, in the past week, I've picked up now 341 new followers. 341. So thank you everybody for following me. I don't think I expected 340. It does mean that I missed getting 7 pies in the face by only 9 new followers. So, whew, maybe. But that does mean I'm looking at 6 pies in the face. Now I'm hearing my family heading out to the backyard. So I'm going to hit the pause here. We're going to get set up. And I will see you within about 5 minutes or so. All right, cool. Hopefully that was good.
You can see this back there.
Yeah, they're hearing you now. All right, well, here we go. I am now outside. It might rain, so it might get even funnier. You know, that we all end up with a bunch of rain and pie. Okay.
Even better.
So here we go. I got 6 coming at me here.
Are you ready?
Am I ready?
Will you ever be ready?
I'm unsure,
Let's
but
go.
let's see what happens. Okay.
Come
Okay.
on.
There we go. Go ahead.
Come on.
Yeah, see, this is pride for you right here. Being pied for pride, that's me. Go ahead. Jesus. All right. Feeling sticky, folks.
You done. This one is taking the last one. Is it the second to
All
last
right,
one?
lay it on me.
Okay, that one was I want to try to get it onto the fence. And I will.
Oh,
I
geez.
actually already have. So.
Oh, there's 2 more.
There's 2 more. And more. Yeah, that was a good one.
Can I get a nice one for the last one? Come on.
Yes. Oh yeah, now we got that. We got that one on the fence. It's back there.
All right.
It's back there.
And there we go, folks.
A little bit sticky. Just a little
It's
bit
a
though.
little bit sticky. That's
Just
been all right.
under exaggerated.
That's been Pied for Pride. This was Identify Yourself with Amethyst to Herrick, looking possibly a little worse for wear.